I think as as a Lendsetter, as mortgage broker that you guys do, you guys give hope for people who want to be a first time homeowner, and that's their whole dream. If we're all here to serve another individual, we have to provide the best service that we can.
Welcome to the Lendsetter Show, the show that blends the art of sales, the science of success, and the strategies of real experts in the mortgage and sales industries to help you grow your client base, increase your revenue, and get in control of your life. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley. Kick back, enjoy the episode, and don't forget to subscribe. Hey, what's going on, friend? Welcome to this episode of the Lendsetter Show. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley, and I'm very excited to be joined by one of my good friends and guest. We're actually at a mastermind here for one of our mentors, Dan Kennedy. As we're filming this, we came back after a nice steak dinner. It was delicious. And now we're hanging out, just kind of riffing on some marketing stuff. And so I'm here with a good friend of mine, Natty Bandasak. Natty, thank you for hopping on the Lendsetter Show today.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. And again, the steak was phenomenal. The ice cream is also really.
The ice cream was good. They said it wasn't homemade, but I don't believe that. Yeah. So Natty, one of the things I want to talk about on this specific episode and why this is so important for, obviously our main audience is mortgage professionals and sales professionals, right? But there's a lot that entrepreneurs as a whole can learn from your journey that, and to give context to you as a listener, Natty and I actually met at Russell Brunson's Inner Circle. Obviously McBilly and I went to that, and then we met Natty and we just clicked. The energy was right. He's our type of people. And we just formed a friendship. And so it was cool, ever since then, we've been able to share a lot of ideas and concepts, and, he'll send me books and ideas and I'll send him books and ideas. It's just a really cool friendship. And so Natty, why don't you just kind of bring our listeners up to speed on what you do? Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about the evolution of that.
Yeah. My name is Natty Bandasak. I'm actually a physical therapist. I have my doctorate in that. I own my own private practice. This is on our 5th year now, so it's been going by really, really fast. But just really bring it back. I'm actually a first-generation immigrant. I moved here from Thailand at the age of 12. Learned English here. Was in ESL for 2 years. So really starting from scratch. Both my parents just worked in the restaurant business, so I saw what hard work looks like. I also saw what's not scaling and not bringing up your business and letting go of some of the responsibility as business owner, especially my parents. Their restaurant owners look like, and the detrimental that it has on your family dynamic. So I saw what not to do. And then as I, start my journey as a PT, I for sure did not want to get into a business at all, because I saw how horrible it was to run a business. So my whole thing was like, I'm just going to climb up a corporate ladder. And I'm sure most of your listeners, your audience, probably had no idea they would be starting their own business. For me, after a year of working in a big corporation, I was just so burned out because I was not able to use my full potential to help the people I want. And, in a big corporation setting, like you have to answer so many people. And one thing I learned is that I'm not really good of an employee when there's restriction placed upon me, right? If I feel like there's a ceiling and I can't move, and especially I can't be creative with the way I treat, the way I give, the way I care. I just figured like, this is not for me. So after a year of doing that, I just decided like, you know what, let me go try something else. Because worst come to worst, I always have this corporate job I can fall back to. So from there, I started out my clinic, man, in super humble settings. Like this room is a kitchen, right? So I had a portable table.
By the way, we are currently in the Airbnb. We waste no time getting down to business and brass tacks. So we're here. When we're done with this, his bedroom's over there.
Yep.
My bedroom's over there, and we got another day of masterminding tomorrow. So we're just, this is gritty, but we're getting it done.
Yeah, and this is the best way to do it though, because you can have really good conversation. So I started my practice with just a portable table, literally half the room here, and then from there I just slowly scaled up, and then I just kind of slowly move along. So I was excited to come here to talk to you about that, just because I know your audience are also in a service provider. I think if we're all here to serve another human, another individual, we have to provide the best service that we can. And I think as a Lendsetter, as mortgage broker that you guys do, you guys give hope for people who want to be a first-time homeowner, and that's their whole dream, right? So the dream for my patients, they want to be able to walk again. They want to be able to, perhaps play Division I sport, right? So we are obligated to provide them with the highest quality care, no matter what you do.
You just said something there that it actually, I was thinking about this earlier as Dan was talking at the mastermind, and it really goes back to mission. You know, when we got really clear about, we actually don't, I mean, we serve the loan officer, yes, but we're actually serving the homeowner through the loan officer. And, you know, it became, our mission became helping everyone with ownership, right? And so the mission behind that is you know, helping everyone with ownership, Americans with home ownership, our clients with ownership of their business, and our team with ownership of their life and their growth within the company. And so I feel like that mission was really big. And I was actually thinking back to when I did life insurance. This is, I mean, we're talking, this is about a little over a decade ago. And I remember I was out on an appointment, and I used to take, you know, when you sell insurance, and most people that sell insurance, and this could be, you know, insert mortgage, real estate, whatever, if you sell something, but you're not very attached to the end result, and insurance is very easy to be distanced from that, because if you're sold the policy, but you've never handled a claim, you've never been there for somebody who needed what you sold them, you kind of get kind of disassociated from it. But I had this one appointment, and I was probably 24 at the time. I had this one appointment with this guy, and he was very dismissive. And this is in a phase where I was focused on life insurance. And I was talking about getting him, his wife, both of their kids, life insurance, supplemental health insurance, stuff like that. And super hard to sell. And he was very resistant. And I mean, it was almost combative, because like when I see kids in the house, or when I sold insurance, when I would see kids in the house, I'd go to bat, right? Because I'm like, dude, that you need this. Like, you have nothing, you like, that's unacceptable. And he practically kicked me out. It was the whole Zig Ziglar, like, I got to pack my shit up, and I'm like, you know, like leaving. And I remember I tried to follow up a few more times, and he was like, I need more time. I'm not thinking about it. He's a union guy, you know, blue collar, you know, literally we had to move an 18 rack off the table to do the presentation. Right. So that's where the priorities were. And anyways, he actually, about, it was like a week and a half later, he got hit by a train. And while he was thinking about it.
Wow.
And it changed how I sold insurance, because in that moment, up to that moment, I was just selling policies. But when I had to go to a funeral and there was nothing to take, because I've been on both ends. I've had people that I've served in life insurance that have died, and I delivered a check. And then I've had that person that died and there was nothing. And it changed it for me, because it became personal. Like, I can't let this happen to another family. I can't leave your house without something. You have to have something. There's too much here to lose if I leave empty-handed. If I don't do my job, this whole bloodline can have to pay the price for your decision, right? And so it became personal. It was like a mission. And so, you know, the interesting part about that, and it wasn't my goal at the time, but it was a natural byproduct, was my conversion rate after that went through the roof, because it was different. I was invested in every home. I cared. I was actually connected to, like, I wanted them to win. I wanted them to have the result. I wasn't worried about policy counts, premium anymore. I was just worried about delivering value, the actual thing, right? And I was thinking back to that, and I was like, man, it was weird to think about how much, I mean, we're talking a lot of change in my conversion percentage. Like, it changed the way I looked at the business, the way I showed up differently. Cause I'm like, dude, if I don't do this, is another family gonna, you know, and it's like, no, not on my watch. Right. And so it was interesting, because I actually look at that for our clients. I look at that for the loan officers that we serve. And it's like, if you don't put people into homes today, if you aren't like hell-bent on that, like it's life or death, and their bloodline, their future depends on you actually getting them getting them to do this and complete this process, what's going to end up happening is they go, you know what, we'll just keep renting. It's hard right now. It's complicated. And they'll push it off. And guess what happens in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? House values go up. Guess what? Their income's best case scenario the same, maybe incrementally better, most likely not outpacing inflation. So now 6, 12, 18 months later, not only did you not serve them originally, you've now guaranteed them to be in a worse spot and less likely to get into a house because you just didn't want to go the extra mile.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if that level of ownership, that level of connection to I have to get this done or else people are depending on me, people need me to deliver, there would be more people in homes. And like you said, there would be more people that are able to walk again, right? It's like if more people took their craft like personal, like serious to that level.
I mean, it's so funny you mentioned that, man, because I just had a serious conversation with my wife about this. Is I see like people are now detached from the job that they do. And I think if you go back and you read any study that they say like end of life study, there's like, oh, what do you regret? Most of the time people regret on the decision they didn't make, but there are more people regretting quitting job earlier because now they have nothing to look forward to. Back in the day, if you look at any German engineering, especially cars, especially go AMG, people would put initial on the engine that they build by hand because they took so much pride in that, right? And back in the bartering days where you and I would just trade, like if your service is not good or the thing you produce is not good because you have no ownership, no pride in what you're doing, I wouldn't take it. Right. So as soon as we introduce money, now that's like change. You're just doing the work for money. You're not doing the work because you want to do the work. I really have a personal story with this, especially to follow along with what you just said. So, so when we moved here, my parents started a restaurant. After the restaurant, they're like, oh, we're living the American dream. The next dream for them was to own a home, right? During this time, I was away at University of Maryland getting my bachelor. So I was out like building my own life. They still working at a restaurant with my sister. And they all just working nonstop, just trying to get a home. And they just like, oh, our credit's not good enough. Who's going to take us on this and that, right? So they just end up keep renting homes after homes. And about 2019, my dad suddenly passed away out of nowhere. And the one thing that I always knew that he always wanted to be able to have a place that he called his own home. But there weren't anyone there that was going to help him because again, as an immigrant, who was going to take you on, right? As far as credits and all of that stuff. And we just didn't know. Like, I mean, I was at the city center, I guess, or the town, like with my parents trying to Google and learn how to register for a business. We all were doing together as a family. So just figure it out. So for them, like there weren't any representation. So if you guys are listening out there and, I hope this story resonate with some of you guys, because you do more than just getting people in a home. Because another thing too, like I like to bring up my story that I wasn't born here, but that doesn't mean I'm not lucky. The fact that my parents decided to move to the US, I hit the lotto. Yeah. Right. The fact I have two parents, I hit the lotto again. And the fact I had a roof over my head, I hit the lotto.
Yeah.
So again, homes mean so much to other people. And you look at all statistically speaking, like we work with a lot of inner city kids and we give them scholarships, especially people who can't afford our services, and usually come from a single parents' household, or they don't have homes, or they live in projects, right? So this is important.
When we went to the Philippines for McBilly's wedding, and I also went there because we have an office there with, I don't know, 30, 35 people there now. It was, I don't want to say it was culture shock because I've spent enough time around Filipino people and I'm familiar enough with it, but like to see it with your own eyes and to see, obviously there's plenty of people there doing well, doing fine, but the floor of poverty in a place like that, the Philippines, Thailand, you name it, right? It's so much lower, right? And so when you talk about having a roof over your head, like quite literally, that's not a thing for a lot of, I don't know, because even homelessness in America, it's like there's shelters, there's places, there's covered places, right? There are not covered places when we went to the Philippines, and so it's like, it was interesting because it's like, I haven't traveled the world a lot. So my exposure is really American exposure. And there's a lot of, there's a wide gap in that, but it's like, when you leave the country and you see other people, it's like, you realize how pivotal homeownership is, how it really is a milestone. And obviously, mortgage people, real estate people, they know that, but do they live it? It's a different level, right? Because it is the difference between, it's McBilly and I always talk about the number one piece of data that will determine the quality of the relationships, the quality of the education, the quality of your life, and the opportunities you have as your zip code. Literally change one number on that and everything can change.
Yeah.
Right. And where you're located matters a lot. Right. And so the house is not just about the four walls and the roof, but also the community in which that's in. And so I think that what you just hit on is huge, because, it's like home ownership is, I think to an extent we take it for granted. We know it's valuable, food, water, shelter. Right. But like, when's the last time you really didn't have it? Right. You might not have had the one you wanted. Right. But you got an apartment, you got even a shelter. Right. There's something. And so, being able to give somebody their own, place to call home, like what your dad wanted. I think that's really what it's about. And so connecting to that mission of going, cause like I've listened to calls where there's a challenge, I'll give you an example. One of the recent objections that's come up for members in our program that I've heard is, and this is becoming progressively more of an issue, is that, well, they can't afford anything where they're at. Why are you still talking about where they're at then? Sell what you have. If they have to move 100 miles, so be it. Get them in a home. Get them building equity. Get them better positions so that when they make a move, maybe they can move back there if they want to. But it's better for them to move 100 miles and get a house than it is to rent where they're at. Right. And so it's like that empowerment, that ownership of like, no, there's options. We're going to get you into a house, hell or high water. We're going to figure this out. Right. And so I've listened to so many calls where like, it was like, oh, you can't afford anything around you. Okay, well, bye. It's like, wait, what? They were interested. They could have qualified for something somewhere, not down the street, but somewhere. We could have done some homework and gotten this resolved. Yeah. We could have gotten them in a house, and we took, in my opinion, the low road, and we just said, well, maybe next time. And it's like, screw where they're at. Let's get them in a home. Let's relocate them. Right. And I'm obviously not going to call it that, but it's easy if you're on the phone and you've determined you've gotten somebody pre-approved, but the amount they're qualified for just isn't what they need to be able to buy the house. You just go, hey, so Natty, I have a really interesting and cool opportunity. I think that it's potentially the right decision for you, but it's ultimately your decision. We have gotten you pre-approved. We have gotten you qualified. The problem, if you want to call it that, is that in your immediate area, it's hard to get the amount of financing with your information for what you need to buy. However, there are opportunities if you're willing to get creative with me. So I guess my question for you, Natty, is are you open to exploring options that may have you going a little bit further out? Well, let's talk about it. Yeah. I mean, McBilly and I whimsically moved out of state. So it's not like people won't move for opportunity, but it's...
Well, I mean, there's this thing called a gold rush. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
People literally relocate. I mean, my parents, we picked up and just left. I mean, honestly, and I think, not to cut you off, but there's a lot of parallels between what you guys do and what we do in the PT, right? Because my job, even though I have a doctorate, doesn't mean people will listen to me, right? Or I can't just go and be like, you got to do this, this, and this, right? Perception, yes. But you guys think that I can just go in and tell my patient and I have 100% compliance. Like, that's not true. That's not human. That's not how it works. So we do exactly what you just stated. We kind of work together. We're like, hey, listen, what's your goal? Is your goal to be able to go, play soccer? Yes. Okay. Now tell me what level, right? Are we talking about professional? Are we talking about Division 1, Division 2, Division 3? Because that's different, right? So we kind of got to work backwards. But what we really need to do is get them to identify what's the ultimate goal. Why do they want to make that decision? I think people try to rush into the end result so fast, right? If you spend time like, hey, why that home? Why do you need a 4-bedroom? Why that zip code? What does that mean, right? Or can we put a timeline on that? Can that be your 5 years goal? What about we go here, right? Because what we do when we work with any patient, we get to know where they are. You have to meet the person where they are. And most of the time, and I see this too, I would assume in your industry, is that when people come and look for home, they have a lot of excitement, but they also scare at the same time because there's that rejection, right? Just like when the patients come to us, they're not happy to be there because they're in pain. So we have to make sure that wherever we meet them, we have to meet them with enthusiasm and support at the same time.
For sure.
So with you, people come in enthused, but also fearful. of rejection, right? So you got to make sure like you meet them where they are. And then from there, let's really get down to the nitty gritty, why they want a home, what about a home that means to them. And also like how much does it mean to them? Because to keep a home is also a lot of time and effort, right?
Right.
Do you know what you're getting into? Or are you just trying to keep up with the Joneses?
That makes a lot of sense. Well, and that, you know, oftentimes a lot of, you know, people come to us wanting leads, but what most people find out is, wow, this is actually really a coaching system and a community that happens to provide resources and tools. And one of the things that we really have seen through that coaching is a lot of people that come into us thinking they just need leads. They're really just trying to do the number qualification, but there's no relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels more like an interrogation than it does, you know, a relationship you'd want to have, right? Like you wouldn't talk to your spouse the way that a lot of these calls happen. It's just, you know, where do you work? What do you make? What's your credit score? Are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? Where do you live? Where do they live? It's like, Jesus, man, like chill, you know? And it's interesting to see. It's like, you guys are in sales, like name anywhere you've been where that would have worked. Right. And so that's just kind of an interesting thing. And so you talk about, you know, getting to know where they're at, and you're a doctor. I mean, for all intents and purposes, if anybody doesn't need a lot of rapport or shouldn't need a lot of rapport, it's your doctor, right? It's like, dude, you got the schooling. I'm injured. You tell me what to do. I don't need to talk about much more about it. However, even you with your credentials still have to build rapport, build a plan, get to know their desires. You know, you have to uncover their why, and then you have to kind of reverse engineer how to get from what they ultimately want to where they're at, right? And then build that path out. And it's like, dude, if you have to do that and you are a doctor, we all got to do it.
Yeah. I think it's just serving another person. Right.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, like I think me personally, like my mission is to change that whole thing with healthcare, right? Because like the fact that I can just go and barge in, like, you need to do this and that, like it's back in the day, we used to have like concierge service medical provider where they come to your home, or even like your local neighborhood pharmacy, like real moms and pop. They know your grandparents, they know they know your whole family, like history, pretty much, so they can communicate and connect with you. Where I think where we are now, society, we're more number and vanity metric kind of driven, where you know, I have on my goal board of, I want to help, you know, 1,000 new patients, but I don't imagine just 1,000 on there. I imagine 1,000 new faces. That's completely phased, and I don't know what they look like. And each time we get a new patient coming in, I just fill in the blank. Part of
the picture. Yeah,
exactly. So that now I'm more connected to what I'm trying to do. Right. I mean, if I were on one of your calls, I'd be like, listen, man, go get Monopoly little houses and just put it on your desk. Each time you put someone at home, put one of those houses there until you can actually build a whole freaking Lego city.
That's actually great. I like that idea. I'm gonna try to find those houses. Okay. So Natty, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you too on this call that I think is there's a lot of, I mean, it's a masterclass of sorts for real students of the game, right? Because most people in mortgage find themselves to, for all intents and purposes, be in business, but they are business owners, but they're not necessarily entrepreneurs. They started as the operator, right? They started as the mortgage professional, and now they're kind of going, okay, well, I wanted to fire a boss. I got rid of my boss. Now I'm it. Now what? Right. And it's different when you're cracking a back, helping somebody with their physical therapy, you know, originating a loan. And now you're doing that and running the business, right? And you're responsible for P&Ls. You're responsible for, you know, hiring, firing, training, all, you know, all of these things that are very different than selling something, right? So I guess my question is, you have, I mean, by all standard measures, you are very successful in your craft, and you're expanding even into coaching and helping other PTs. And I think that that's phenomenal. And you know, you're unlocking a lot of doors of that success. And obviously it's not unearned, because you're in a lot of circles that I know a decent amount of PTs, and most of them are not doing what you're doing. Right. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, he's doing more work. He's getting more output. Maybe a connection here. Right. But I want to talk a little bit about the kind of the evolution from you being in physical therapy, doing physical therapy, and now owning a physical therapy practice that's thriving. I'd like to kind of hear about that evolution in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely give it a breakdown. In the beginning, with any one of us, like we're all just technician. We just know the craft. We just know what to do, how to make it work. We're just miserable enough to say, you know what, this ain't it. Like I'd rather just go suffer and at least try, right? And then the biggest thing is it's all about changing your identity, right? So the first one, you become the technician, and then you become a technician that actually makes some money. You're like, oh, all right, this is working. This is kind of cool. And then at some point, you become pretty good at what you do to the point where you're getting busy, but then you realize you're just suddenly time poor. You're like, oh, now I just, got myself a new job, but now I don't have someone to blame except for myself. My old boss sucks, but now I'm my own boss. And this guy sucks too because I can't take vacation. Because if I take vacation, I don't have any money.
Well, yeah, and he's hard to fire too.
Exactly.
When you're your own boss.
Yeah. So the biggest shift for me was understanding that in order to scale, and again, going back to watching my parents not wanting to scale because their mindset was always, no one's going to do a better job as me and your dad, which is true. It's not someone else's business, but there are some tasks that is worth letting go. So the first thing for me was like, okay, I'm just going to do the opposite of what my parents did. So it's like, they wouldn't hire someone. I'm going to hire someone and let's see what that goes. So I end up hiring someone. I was like, okay, that's pretty good. They can do a pretty good job. And then like, all right, they make some mistake. Okay, let me see if I can help them out with that. And then as I'm going more and more, I just realized, oh wow, I should have done this a long time ago. So the first step is to actually trust yourself to make good and bad decisions, because you got to give yourself that permission to make bad decisions.
Take risks.
Yeah, that's always taking risks. But again, it's only risky when you know is when you don't know it's bad. So what I mean by that is that if you're just blindly, abdicating tasks and not checking in and think that, oh, this person did a job for 8 months, they know more than me. Not true. Nobody know your business like as well as you do, especially the mission. Right. So my first evolution was just shifting that mindset to just, okay, let's just hire someone to do the job. And then I was in this point, and I think majority of all of us in entrepreneur stuck in this rut the whole time where I was a PT who happened to own a business, where I accidentally stumble upon it. I'm like, oh, now I have a business. Now I have payroll.
Right.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to keep this going. And there was a certain point where we hit a certain turmoil within culture because everything was kind of run as a family-owned business, and there were no system, no structure. I didn't have a roadmap. So the reason I got to where I am today is I actually sought out a lot of help regarding who in my industry that can give me roadmap, just like what you're doing for your audience, for your people, right? You gave me them coaching, but really you gave me the roadmap.
Right.
Because most people think it's a lead problem. Like they wish it's a lead problem, right? Imagine like if you go and give someone like 10,000 leads, it's like hitting the lotto. It solves your immediate problem, but you can't sustain it. What are you going to do with 10,000 leads if you have no process?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because we actually there was an actual example. We had a client that was with us for 18 months, and we had generated 2,284 leads for him. And at the 18th month mark, he was like, hey, I really like you guys, but I'm just not making money in this. We've only done 15 loans in the 18 months. And I'm like, you got 18 months. You have 2,284 leads. I don't know how else to tell you this, but just like you said, you don't have a lead problem. If you give me 2,284 name and numbers from the white pages, I'm going to do at least 16 loans. And then we looked into the system, and then there was, I remember there was one that actually just, it kind of pissed me off and it kind of broke my heart. There was one dude who had said, it was responding to one of our automated messages, and he had said, yes, we are interested and we're looking to buy in the next month or so. We have a little over 20,000 saved already, and we got about a 720 FICO. Now, by most measures, I can find a house for that person. No response. Nothing. And it's like, of course you didn't do more than 15 loans in a year and a half. Like, who's making the calls, who's actually originating the loans. Like I can't do that for you. And if I could, that's a dangerous precedent, by the way, because the moment you're not doing that, you don't have a job. Like, especially in an industry that's relatively commoditized, a loan's a loan to the consumer, right? The only differentiating factor is the person, the relationship. So if you're like, about the relationship, you're about the money. Like, then it ain't going to come to you, And so that was an interesting thing. And so it sounds like that's even an issue in your world that you see as far as like, generating leads and them kind of just becoming nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's any business, right? Like in my world, lead acquisition is a huge thing, but then what you do with the leads is another problem, right? And then fulfillment is also another thing. The one point I want to make is that I don't do physical therapy, right? I do transformation. That's what I call my clinic. It's a transformation center. Someone happened to come in, they're injured. That's their self-identity. And it's our job to figure out what's the identity before they got injured and then transform them back to who they were before.
I like that.
That's how you have to look at it, because no one needs a loan, right? They want a home, just like no one wants a hammer. Right. They want to do something with the hammer. Yeah. So you got to go beyond that, because if you're playing small ball and you're thinking small, that I'm just giving people a loan, like you'll lose right there. Like people really come for the loan, but they stay for the relationship. Yeah. And to me, leads is an opportunity to build rapport with that person, right? Let's look at it this way. Let's be really kind of like dark for a little bit. If we think about how many days we have left to live on this earth, what kind of impact do you want to make, right? And if you were giving 100 people that you don't know, that you could impact them in a positive level, right? Giving what you do, aka giving them loans, how would you want to serve them? How would you want to do it where those people might invite you to Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like my job is like, either when they come to my world, they either not respond to me, say, don't talk to me ever again, you're not for me, or, hey, why don't you come over for Thanksgiving? Yeah. That's our matrix of success.
No, I mean, that's huge. Well, and one of the things that I often coach on is the real job as an entrepreneur is following the bottleneck in your business, right? Because it's like, okay, well, there's a point where we all do have a lead problem, but the moment you have leads, you don't have a lead problem. Now you have a sales problem. Now you might not have the egoic flexibility to acknowledge that, because for most people in sales professions, mortgage being one, I mean, honestly, anything that involves a phone is one, right? So even you guys closing patients is one, but like, it's hard for a lot of people to go, I need to get better at selling. Like a lot of people struggle with that, right? It's the same reason for call reluctance. It's like, well, if you were looking at it from a growth opportunity, it's not so bad. But if you're looking at it like, I have to confront something, I have to like, because people create this, I'm good at sales. I know what I'm doing. I know how to sell. Well, if you know how to sell, then why is your bank account like lacking commas? Right? It's like, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Let's look at it. There's an area for opportunity here, right? That's not to throw shade. It's just like, you can't have results and excuses. Like one repels the other, right? So if you want to choose success, understand that you can't have excuses. If you want to have excuses, understand you can't have success. Like they are mutually exclusive. And so, when you have leads, you don't have a lead problem. And then when you start making sales, what, ends up happening is now the bottleneck shifts. You have a fulfillment issue, because now you're all of a sudden hitting records in sales and your team's going, what the hell? We don't got the time for this. Well, now we got to hire people to be able to process more loans or to be able to do more therapy in your situation, right? And it's like, and then the bottleneck shifts, right? And so the bottleneck's never gone. It's just, where's it at today? And it's ever moving. And so real entrepreneurs, real successful business owners that I've seen have almost a sixth sense ability to predict, like how a hockey player is not looking for where the puck's at, but where it's going. Where's the bottleneck going to be next, right? And they're able to kind of anticipate and be there. And so they get speed, and that speed transfers into profit. So I want to circle back to something though. So, you obviously were quite successful. I mean, I feel like we breezed over it to an extent. You were quite successful doing the thing, right? Doing, as you call it, transformation, but doing physical therapy. And then you ended up in business doing it. And now you're running a business. what are some of the things that you think, because most people that find themselves in that spot kind of get stuck in a purgatory and then usually either fizzle out of it altogether or, retract back to, I just want to work for somebody else. I don't want this responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you figured it out. So what were some of the things that you feel better prepared you and allowed you to be able to thrive in that?
Yeah. So again, going back to the identity thing. So I just kind of switched the identity from physical therapist who happened to own a business to a business owner who happened to be a physical therapist. Right. So just flip those two words, massive difference. Right. So if I were to hire myself as a PT, how would I act and behave? Versus if I were to run this business, how would I act and behave? Right. So that's two different lens, right? Because if I were just a PT, I would just keep treating. But then again, I'll just my dollar, my earning, my impact is based on what I can do with my two hands. Right. And then, but if I go as a business owner, it's like, oh wow, I can hire more PTs, we can help more people. We can actually help people who actually doesn't understand what PT is by connecting with them. Like most of the time when people come into, my clinic, they fail physical therapy. All physical therapy has failed them. So now I have to go and change it. It's like, oh, well, no, we're doing differently, this and that. Like we have to give them a whole new vehicle to see like why we're different, right? It's almost like trying to date a girl after like she just came out from a bad relationship. Like she's not going to trust any guy. So you have to go in and build rapport from day one over and over again. So that's the biggest transformation when it comes to changing mindset. And another thing too, I gave myself permission to fail and learn the mistake that I needed to learn. And because of that, it liberated me to keep on going. And the reason you say the bottleneck thing, and I agree with that, but I didn't learn that. I didn't learn that until like a year and a half ago. And, I'm 5 years in, we went from 0 to 7 figure in 4 years. And that's like, in a one-on-one setting, like to me, I think it's
you're
pretty
top
cool.
of the pyramid. I mean, yeah.
And the way I looked at it is, to be able to do that, you have to understand that you're going to make mistake, but you won't want to make the same mistake twice. And as you keep making mistake, you're going to start spotting trend, because the biggest thing for me is going back to the ownership thing that you guys have is you have to be willing to go and sit down, like, where did I go wrong with that? And then just kind of reverse engineer, like, oh yeah, I probably could have seen that a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, I should have done that. Oh, I advocated right there. Right. So now you can pick up on a trend. Now for me, I look at bottleneck as season, right? So I was like, all right, let's say Q1, we're pretty slow. Guess what? If we're slow, what can I implement on? Okay, I'm going to fix operation, right? Because now I can actually go and do some deep dive. Like, okay, where would we shit in Q4, right? And then Q2 was slow picking up. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Make sure Q1 we're fixing operation, but we're driving marketing spend so we can get more leads in Q1 so that when Q2 comes, we have more leads and we can convert. Right. And then by the time we hit Q3, we're going to have so much fulfillment that fulfillment is going to fail by Q4.
Right.
And then we have to fix fulfillment. Right. So you play the game on how much can you keep going on each level, and you just climb one step at a time.
I like that.
And to me, like, all right, it's fun because every time I get to go to a different level in each different segment of my business. And you just look at it in 4 P's, right? Operation, marketing, sale, fulfillment. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm just going to do this over and over again until it's just keep leveling up.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think there's a lot of value in that. Your numbers are honestly really impressive. It's rare to see somebody who, without a team, I mean, we were, just listening to a guy today who, made 9 million, and that's great. But that was like, took him 16 years to make. And it's like, I'm not hating on that. That's still pretty impressive by all measures, right? However, $1 million a year when it's really mainly you and it's your 2 hands, that's 500 an hour. I mean,
well, I mean, we crossed the 7-figure last year, but I had 4 clinicians. And then,
okay. So at this point now you're in the business owner spot completely.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So as soon as I made that mindset shift, that's when I started. Well, actually, I hire first. So here's the thing, right? You guys think that you need. So what is it? Is it Atomic Habit? Say you need to be with your identity first before you start taking on the habit. For me, the way I look at it, if I hire someone, I'm already paying them money. I was like, well, how do I best support them? Like, I better be like the business owner that they would want to have.
Yeah.
Or not what they would want to have, because sometimes employee doesn't know what they want. Just like most people, right? Like my wife doesn't know what she wants to eat for dinner. We've been together for so long, right? It's either Chinese food, Italian food. We just can't pick.
Yeah.
So I just need to be the business owner that I think is best for the team that I have. That's what I meant to say.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. So, you know, the thing that, and you said it, and is a little bit different than me, but it's huge and it's part of your identity pieces. I've always said my job as a sales, you know, and marketing coach and a growth partner in the mortgage space is to take mortgage professionals that happen to have a business license and turn them into business professionals that happen to have a mortgage license, right? And so it's kind of a different lens of the same thing that you had mentioned there. Dude, Natty, that's phenomenal. What would be a piece of advice, or maybe you know, if you got more than one, to somebody who is kind of at that precipice where it's obviously more work to go from being solo practitioner, you know, the salesman, to now running an organization, even if it's 2-3 people, right? But that's the choice to scale, the choice to grow, the choice for more, right? Because like you said, just like you, a loan officer, if a loan officer is unsupported, I've always called it the 3-loan curse. Most mortgage professionals cannot break 3 loans a month if they are unsupported. And what ends up happening is they have a decent month, they get 3 loans, they're pretty stoked about it. Well, next month, guess what happens? They were busy fulfilling 3 loans, so their prospecting's dead. And now they're restarting. And so this roller coaster gets created, right? And then that's obviously problematic. So yeah, they did 3, but they're not going to do 3 every month. They're going to do 3 now, maybe 2, then 1, then 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 2. So it's like this cyclical thing, right? And so it requires the people to stabilize the business and make it consistent. So what is a piece of advice you would give to somebody who is currently originating loans? You know, because you were at this point and you chose greatness from it, right? And you made some great choices that became, as you said, a 7-figure business, annual revenue. So what is a choice or some choices or some piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's on the precipice of going from being the practitioner, the tactician, to running the show?
So I'm going to give a movie analogy reference.
Okay.
So I'm sure most of you guys have seen the movie 300. You have seen it, right?
Love that movie.
Of course. So for the Spartan soldier, which is only 300 of them, to go against the Persian Empire, which is the whole empire.
It's like unlimited.
Yeah, pretty much. The only way they were able to do that is surround Spartacus, right? No, Leonidas. Leonidas surrounded himself with really, really good people who understand his mission, his vision, and is to protect the homeland that they have, right? So as soon as I saw that movie, that's how I look at business, that how can I surround myself with as many Spartans as possible that's going to go on this uncharted journey with me. So that way we can have each other's back. We can have the shield, someone else the spear. And that's the mindset you have to get into, because if you believe in people, you have to believe in community. And if you believe in achieving something great, you know you cannot do it alone, right? Because look at Elon, look at Steve Jobs, look at all these people that invent something great. They didn't do it alone.
For sure.
Right? So if you take yourself out of it for a little bit, and then you take, you know, like 2 steps back and then just ask yourself this question, like, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to create? And if I need to create that thing, what kind of people would I need to have around me in order to achieve that goal? Now you start thinking, it's almost like we call this constraint-induced therapy. So when someone has a stroke and they can only use their right hand, guess what? We strap down the right hand, force them to use the left hand, right? So now you have to force that. So if you say, okay, if I want to achieve this and I can't do it alone, and I can only have 3 people with me, what quality do I need? And what would each of them look like? Who do I need to hire? And you just go based on that. And then from there, now you get more comfortable with the decision that you're about to hire people, because you kind of know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. The scariest thing about owning a business is hiring people. And for me, it's a gift and a curse, because I get to give someone an opportunity to, you know, pursue something more than just a paycheck, right? Hopefully. And I didn't get to where I am today without people giving me those opportunities in the past, especially as an immigrant. Like I worked at a restaurant, then I became a dishwasher, then I became a busboy. But then again, it's people that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And to me, as a business owner, that's such a gift to be able to give someone like an opportunity. Like, yo, I think this kid got it. He has something he might not see yet, but I think with the right coaching, with the right environment, I think he can do something with this.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, that's fun for me to see. If they don't stay with me and they end up leaving my world, like that's great. Like I'm happy. Like we have kids who like employee who left and go do other things. Awesome. Right. And I think that doesn't stop the mission though, because then you just need to understand who you need to keep you on track of the path you want to be on.
I used to fear losing team members because I mean, it's hard, obviously, and it's incredibly expensive. Like people don't talk enough about how much it costs to lose a team member, good or bad. Like it's expensive. Right. And I can't remember who I heard it from, but there was a saying, one of those success coaches, and they were talking about you need to free up people's future, right? And it's about just allowing them the freedom and the liberty. It's a different mindset, right? Because it's like I almost feel it's like I'm scared to lose people is scarcity. Well, the abundance is, dude, there's so many opportunities. Go find what makes you happy. Like I'm not even worried about the cost. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Go be happy. If you're not happy here, go be happy, right? And that really shifted the way that I looked at kind of people development. I mean, this is something that McBilly and I are working on even now. Is we're at a season in business where we've grown so much that it's like we're having to really formalize and develop a lot of training and structure and support for our team and leadership development. And it's new and it's interesting, but like at the same time when people and some people won't want to go where we're going. And I hope they all do, but I'm mentally prepared for it not to be the case because we're getting clearer on our core values. We're getting clearer on our mission. We're getting clearer on the direction we're going. And I can only imagine there's got to be at least one person that's unexcited about that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out and let's build a plan. Right. And so that's been a really interesting thing for me personally as an entrepreneur and as a to helping people develop is just that realization that and it's kind of a sonder of sorts. Everybody's going to leave your life eventually, and it's okay. And it's like we have a mission to run with them, without them, and if we can have them with us for as much as possible in that time frame, that's great. But if not, that's okay. And we got a mission to do either way.
I mean, to add on to that, like the way I looked at it is I give people permission to just leave. Right. I think that's a different thing. Like I don't fear people leaving. If they want to leave, they definitely could leave. Like that's the whole point. And what I tell my team, and I usually say it before any monthly meeting, is like, I'm happy you guys are here because you've shown to be here. We don't need each other. That's the best part, right? We kind of want to be here, right? Because at the end of the day, you can go find another job. I can go find an employee, but we all want to be here together.
Yeah.
And one thing I caught myself doing too is, as a business owner, like you, especially when you're in this kind of world, you and I are learning actively, so we can bring back to our village, our tribe, and say, "Hey guys, here's what I learned. We're just gonna do this and that." What I found is that I'm sometimes I wait for people to just like, "Oh yeah, let's catch up, let's do this and this." And what I realize is that that's not doing them a service at all, because if I wait for them, then they have no sense of urgency. Right. But here, and I learned this, like, when you're about to be late for school, your parents, the cars in drive, they're driving slowly. You're moving your ass a lot faster, so that way you can get in the car. So that's how I feel. I was like, all right, I'm not just going to wait here. I'm going to slowly move.
Yeah.
If you want to come with me, there's path.
Yeah.
Hurry up. I'll show how to get here. We'll go together.
Yeah.
Right. And I think as soon as I start changing that mindset, like, and even like just this seminar we're at today, just talking about like, influencing people and creating maximum impact. Like I can't do that if I'm just waiting for people forever.
Yeah.
Right. If I just keep going on my path and they say, you know what, that guy's going somewhere, I kind of like to, I want to be a part of it. Cool. Let's do it. Like, I think we talk about this. You know how like when Facebook got really big, people started bragging that they were like the first 5 employees I was the first 5 employee of Facebook. I was like, bro, you could have been a janitor that happened to be in that whatever Airbnb or WeWork. And then you just like, yes, like maybe they just couldn't afford someone better. Like that's not a brag. Right. But if you were now like the current employee of Facebook, you're up there, like now there's a higher requirement. because your first employee is like, can they breathe? Yes. Can they smile? Yes. Okay, you're hired.
Yeah.
Right. And to all the business owners that are listening out there, that I remember my first hire is I was selling her on why she should work for me, and I was paying her to work for me. So it was weird because like I feel like I was getting interviewed to hire her.
Yeah.
And we all go through that, right? But now we're at the point where like, okay, yeah, we can't hire. Right. And it's season of business. And the more reps you have, the more scar you have, the more confident you have, because you have like Alex Ramosi said, this is that, you know, you're good, then you're great, then you're undeniable. Right. The more shit you go through, the more undeniable you become.
Yeah.
And to wrap it up to what you said before, like of not wanting to face the hardship or looking yourself in the mirror. It's going back to Star Wars when Luke Skywalker has to go confront, you know, the vision of Darth Vader, but really is himself, right? Like who we want to be is on the other side of the thing we don't want to face. That's why there's always a dragon guarding some sort of treasure.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's a saying I say to my wife or my team's like, yeah, I got to slay dragons today. Right. And that's what we do. We slay dragons every day.
I love it. So we're obviously at a mastermind. I mean, this is a really cool community because it's like, you know, it's obviously for Dan Kennedy, who's one of our main mentors. And it's a big deal to me. It's a big deal to you. I know that. And it's obviously cool because in a sense, we're getting a little slice of history, right? Because this is one of those events where he's been doing this for almost 50 years. Some of his oldest clients who have been there for almost that amount of time, over 40, are with us in this room. And obviously, you know, we're some of the youngest cats in the room, right? And so there's this really cool spread and just diversity of the audience, and it's refreshing. You know, one of the questions, because obviously this event, it's an invite only mastermind about creating maximum impact and influence. What do you feel is one of the, just as a business owner and as a practitioner, what do you feel like is one of the biggest takeaways you've gotten from day one of this event, from being here with Dan?
Yeah, Dan always talk about your business is not your deliverables. That pretty much your business is not what you serve, right? My business is not physical therapy. My business is in the investment of people getting better, right? Through whatever vehicle they want. PT happened to be one of them. But really the business itself is between the clients and the relationship that we have with them, right? So that's something that is intangible, but also extremely valuable. What I mean by that, tangible is something like this that you and I can see. Alone is very tangible. If you put PT, it's something that we do, but it can be really tangible. If I market pain relief, guess what? I'm as tangible as Tylenol, which is $10, right? So if I market the tangible stuff and I only speak on the tangible stuff, I will be priced out by
that's commodities.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the biggest takeaway for me. It's like, all right, I gotta view it my business. Like I believe it's a transformation center. Okay, cool. How do we represent it as such? How do we curate the experience? Right. That's another thing too. Like when people walk into my clinic, we have I call it like the hall of greatness, right? Because all the pro jerseys are up there. These are guys and girls that we work with. And the reason we put it in there is because when someone walked in and they're injured, they get to see all this name that they know. And they're like, oh, wait, these people go here. That means they were probably at some point injured just like me. And now their name is on the wall.
Yeah, and they're still a pro.
Exactly.
Right. So it's
So it's future casting what's going on. So that's the biggest thing, because Dan does a really good job of, you know, like solving the problem, but really it's an identity crisis that people have because of the problem. So I think like that's been a huge thing for me. And another thing I've learned is just to keep to create the most impact, you really have to be willing to share your story, to be open. And you guys did a really good job in your newsletter, just sharing your progression, like, you know, seeing McBee in his new apartment in Chicago, you know, like that's great. Like people love that. And I think as loan officer, you guys have an obligation to connect with the people you're trying to help as well. Because at the end of the day, if you see them just as number, they only gonna see you as loans.
But I actually tell a story a lot about the real estate agent that helps McBilly and I both get a house in Arizona. We have talked a lot. And if Kirk comes by the house, it's not a, hey, what's up, man? You okay? What's going on? It's a, come on in, man. You want some water? You want a coffee? What's going on? How you doing? Sit down. You hungry? You know, it's like if he didn't have a place on Thanksgiving, he would totally be welcome. Right. And you had mentioned that earlier. I thought it was cool you mentioned that because it's kind of a barometer that I use. And so, you know, I talk about Kirk because Kirk's a $1 million gross commission producer, which in the real estate world is like top 1%. I mean, you know, to be able to generate $1 million annually in commissions, you've helped a lot of people. You've done some cool shit. And he was very on top of things. The communication is very strong. But once we had the house stuff kind of fleshed out, he would just stop by for the weirdest stuff. And it was just fun. I remember one day he like trespassed into my backyard and he's known as the bacon realtor. So he threw this like bacon pool floaty in my pool. And so I came home and I'm like, what is that? And then I realized it's a bacon thing. I was like, yo, were you by my house today? He goes, yeah, I just threw that in your backyard. I was like, oh, okay. And then, you know, for Christmas, he came by with like this, I don't even know what it was. It was like a dehydrated, it looked like bacon. It might have been meat, but it didn't look like it was meat. I don't know.
Meat was beyond meat.
It looked beyond meat. I will say that. But he brought like this Christmas bacon ornament that looked kind of fleshy, and I'm like, okay. But it's quirky. It's cool. It's fun. It's like, dude, we're not talking about real estate, but when I go to sell, irrefutably, I know who I'm going to go. Yeah. And it's not because we're talking about real estate. It's like, you know, and this is one of the things that, you know, you had mentioned the relationship component is this is just the barometer. This is how you know you've succeeded. If you didn't have anywhere to go and you asked them, hey, can I join you at Thanksgiving? Would they say yes? If they wouldn't say yes, pick the phone up. You got work to do. Call the people, build a relationship, get to know them, get to know their why, get to know what's important to them. You know, and it's like that's the litmus test that most people should be looking at this through, because you know, I see so much booty call marketing that happens where people will do a purchase for somebody and they get all excited. They do the closing table photo, and then 2-3 years go by, nothing. And then when rates go down, it's refi season, and loan officers just get into booty call marketing mode where they're like, hey, you know, I know we did your loan 2 years ago. And it's like, dude, if you weren't in contact during those 2 years, somebody else has crept in and taken that relationship. You lost it. Yeah. You had it and you let it off the hook. Right. And that's kind of a shame on you, because you went through the cost of acquisition. You suffered the cost of acquisition. You've made the first sale. And all you had to do was keep up the good work. And you said, F it. I'll hit him up in a few years. No, you won't. Most of the time, no, you won't. Right. Yeah. Because they have options. It's 2023. I can Google anything. Anything I want is at my fingertips. And you think that you can just go every 1,000 days without contact? Get out of here, you know? And so it's an interesting thing. So anyways, yeah, I can connect with what you're saying there, because there's never been a stronger need for that relationship and rapport with who you do business with. And getting to know them as people. You know, it's like, that's the thing with our realtors. I know them as a person. I know them as a person way more than I know them as a realtor. And I started with them as a realtor. Yeah. You know,
and I think just to add into what you were just saying is, cost of acquisition obviously is a lot, but there's also a cost of missed opportunity, especially when it comes to referral, of how many people can those homeowners refer to you? Like, how much have you win their trust over? So like the way I look at, when we get a patient in, I say we're lucky because we got that patient in, wherever they come from. They have not turned into a customer or a client until they refer to us, right? So that's really my litmus test of how well we really do at serving the people that we have, right? So like I have my ops manager do what we call it a gas call, which is stand for give a shit. So we do a gas call after someone come in for initial evaluation.
I love that. That's great.
And we turn a gas call into a gas process. We're going to build a whole thing out to just give a shit everywhere that we can.
You gotta keep me in the loop on this.
Yeah, I'll definitely, I'm building out like a 12 months campaign.
Oh, I love it.
On that. But the whole point is that she needs to call, introduce herself to be the point of contact, and ask if we have exceeded their standard to the point they would love to refer us, their friends or their family. Right? Because if the answer is no, then the next question is like, where can we do better?
and actually listen.
Yeah.
Don't just ask. There's something that, and for the most part, it escapes me until usually, the conversation's already passed. But back when I sold life insurance, and this is kind of a thing that it blows my mind that more people don't see this way. Like everybody I see ask for referrals, like everybody, not in the old space, but in mortgage, it's like they only ask for referrals from people that they do business with.
Mhm.
And, that's the starting point. But I got to the point when I was selling life insurance where I would average a sale of about every 3 to 4 doors I knocked on, one would be a sale,
Mhm.
which is kind of impressive if you think about it, because I walk in their
It's
house,
cold.
they have no idea who I
Mhm.
am. And within 90 minutes, I'm leaving with medical records, avoided check, social security numbers, date of births. I mean, this is wild to me.
Yeah.
Like in hindsight, I'm like, I can't believe I did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
And but from a referral standpoint, the interesting part to me was I got referrals in every home. Now, the best referrals were the sales. I'll give it that. However, I averaged 13 referrals per sale. And that's not because I gained 13 when I sold. It's because I gained 3 every door I went through. And so it just happened to be 13 per sale. But when you do the math, it's not anything magical. I'm just getting 2, 3, 4 a house. Right. And when you add all that up, so it's like, okay, the person you don't do business with, well, did you still add value? There's value to add. Value is, there's perceived, there's real, there's financial value. There's all kinds of ways to get value.
Dan talked about the value in the unconverted. And that, when I heard that
was great.
That was huge, because just because you didn't convert someone doesn't mean you can't serve them. Doesn't mean they can be part of your world. Right. Or doesn't mean you should give up on them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another thing I learned with Dan as well, is that you have to keep broadcasting your message to the right people until they're ready to hear your message. Like if I'm upset, no matter what you say to me, I'm not going to hear you. Right. So it's the same thing when it comes to your client, your customer. Like if my client, my ideal clients right now is laying in bed crying because she just tore her ACL and she can't play soccer with her friends. Now her hopes of going to D1 is dwindling. She's not going to hear what I have to say. She have to come down from that place first. Then she say, okay, I understand what's going on. Now what can I do about it? Who can I look for? What would be the best fit for me? And then if I happen to keep sending the same message over and over and over again, and she happened to listen, great. Now we can start a conversation. Right. And I think, again, if you truly believe that it's God-given right for people to have a home, then you shouldn't give up.
Yeah.
Right. It's going back to what you believe in. Right. I believe people should be able to just have total freedom to pursue like the ideal life that they want without physical limitation. Right. So if I believe in that, I'm not going to give up until I get them there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I think that's huge. Okay, well, Natty, this has been phenomenal. Before we close out, I really want to just ask one question. I like to ask all my guests is, what is a book that you've gone through in recent, months or years that you felt has been transformative to you as either a practitioner or a sales professional or a business owner?
So, the one book that I read and then purchased to every one of my team to have is The Ultimate Sales System by Machine. Yeah. Ultimate Sales Machine by Shed Holmes. I mean, you can read that book cover to cover and just realize that you just need to carry that. And then and it lays out from operation, marketing, sales, and fulfillment. You can, if we're talking about season that you need to keep improving, I was like, oh, what season is it? Oh, the way it's Q2. Oh, okay, let's go implement this.
Yeah.
Right. You just go in. It's another roadmap, and it's a constant reminder. So if they have you and Big Billy in their ears about what they need to do, and they have that book to remind them what they need to do, and they can actually give it to their team. Like, sometime I have scorecards meeting. I say, hey, bring that book. Let's talk about this. That's what we're going to do. Oh, you need direction? It's on page 15. Do that.
That's great. Okay. So The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes is the book you'd recommend.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. So guys, thank you for joining this episode of the Lendsetter Show with our special guest, Natty Bandasak, a good friend of mine, one of my brothers through the masterminding communities that we're in. probably want to, I mean, obviously there's been so many, you know, I mean, we're here with Dan because of Russell Brunson and the involvement through that community, because he kind of brought, you know, if you will, the Old Testament and the New Testament of marketing together, right? And you know, I'm very grateful for that. There's been so many fruitful things that have come out of that mastermind, but your friendship is definitely one of them. So
Likewise, man.
dude, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to see the future of what you do. You're doing some really cool things. How can people that are listening to this episode, if there's people that are either out by you and you're in Jersey,
Yep.
right?
East Hanover, New Jersey.
Yeah. So if there's people in Jersey that go, you know what? I'm in pain. I wouldn't mind talking to Natty. How can they either reach out to you, or maybe they want to talk about marketing, or maybe there's another PT that's listening to our show that goes, you know, I need to hear more of what he's got to say.
Yeah, I mean, find me on social media. I'm big on Instagram, dr.natty. You got to spell out dr.natty. And then Twitter, Facebook, shoot me a DM. Would love to connect with you guys. If you're in the area, if you want to come by the clinic, talk shop a little bit, yeah, I would love to connect, because, you know, like anyone that's part of your community, I consider a friend. So please swing by and reach out.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll put your stuff in the show notes there. So, Natty, thank you again for joining. And
my pleasure, man.
Thank you for hanging out with us for this episode of the Lendsetter Show. And we will see you on the next episode.